And all right, let's share the screen and jump into this deck.
There we go.
All right, so this is the first page of the prelim that you see when it comes. And I'm gonna go through every aspect of it. So you'll see that each section is numbered, and we're gonna go in order based on these numbers. So as I say number 4, you'll know that we're pertaining over here to the order number, right? So number 1 is gonna outline the title company office, their address, their phone number, things like that. Number 2, and I'm gonna go through these pretty quick because this is irrelevant to most. Number 2 is the name of the firm that requested the preliminary report. It's usually the escrow company. Number 3 is the space for the applicant's file number. So a lot of times we look for the address, things like that. That's usually going to be in number 3, or it's going to be the APN number. Number 4 is going to be the title company's order number. And that's important sometimes. So a lot of times I'll get calls on a property and I'll ask for the order number, and it's hard to find sometimes. It's usually in the subject line of most emails, but it's going to be there, okay? As you scroll through, this is just company information pertaining to the title company. Number 5 is the paragraph that states that there's no liability intended under a preliminary report. This is basically a guide to the title report. It's not the actual title policy being issued, okay? Number 6 is the date in which it was created. 7 is the name of the title officer that's on that file. 8 is the type of policy. Most of them are going to be Alta homeowner policies or a full Alta policy. Very seldom do we even do anything outside of a full Alta policy. But the type of policy that it's being pulled for is going to be number 8 there. Okay. Let me scroll down here for you. So number 9 is the paragraph that describes the interest in the land in which is covered for the report. For example, it's either a fee, a condominium, or it's a leasehold, right? So it'll be listed there. 10 is the paragraph that shows the name of the owner on record of the estate covered by the report as the date the report was done. So this is going to be who's on title here, right? Currently when this report was pulled. And number 11 is the description of the land. So the legal description is number 11 here. Okay. Let's scroll through to section B is where we start getting into the things recorded against the property itself. So 12 is a paragraph that tells you that in addition to standard printed exceptions, there will appear in the title policy the following exceptions which pertain specifically to the property in question. And then it lists what those are. So this is where taxes, liens, easements, things like that will be listed. So on this one, for example, oh, give me one sec. People are trying to get admitted in here. Annie, I should have made you a co-person here.
Oh, well, for next time. This is our first one.
13 is your property taxes. That's always going to be first in line. So property taxes each year on January 1st, the lien of the following year's taxes. So 13 gives you your general property taxes, and it will list that that year. 14.
Remember, the year runs from July to July.
Correct, July to July. And again, guys, if you guys have any questions moving through, by all means, use the chat feature. 14 is tax information that's provided for proration purposes. Okay, so It'll break down the first installment, the second installment, and then the total tax, et cetera, for that parcel number. 15 is property taxes. So each of several types of transactions specific by chapter 3.5 of the R&T code and triggered representative of the results in the supplemental tax bill. So if there was a supplemental tax, it'd be listed right here under that. 16
No, wait, that's going to be in every single file also. The reason for that is because, as we all know, as soon as your buyer comes into title, there's going to be a supplemental tax for that buyer's amount. And the title company puts this lien of supplemental tax, if any, added also, so they are exempt from any liens that come even in the future. So they're exempt from all liens, whatever's recorded or not, you know, whatever's showing right now or whatever is not showing.
Correct. And then 16 starts into the easements. So quick thing on easements. So a rule of thumb on easements, or a definition on easements. Easements are a right to use of the land of another for specific purpose. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for you as an agent to go through the prelim and look at all of the easements that are listed on this document. Sometimes there could be 10, 15 easements depending on the size of the property. Sometimes there will be one, sometimes there won't be any. But it's extremely important, and the reason why is because a lot of times people don't realize that there could potentially be an easement that involves another property, and then the property closes and your client goes to put in a pool or wants to put up a wall or a fence, and then the neighbor says, wait a minute, that's an easement that allows me X, Y, or Z. It'd be very important to know that up front, because you would be the first person that your client is going to call when that issue arises, and it's usually not going to be a pleasant call. So I would highly emphasize that you do go through and look at the easements that are listed. And each of these easements, when they start to list them, will have a document number associated with it. And with all of our prelims, you are able to click on that document number and it'll hyperlink to the recorded document of that easement, okay? And you can read through and see what it is. A lot of the easements are going to be for public utilities and incidental purposes, things like that. However, sometimes it could be for ingress, egress of a neighbor. It could be, you know, I had one property that we ended up having to deal with where there was private roads. And these roads, you wouldn't think were private because they had city street names on them. However, there was an easement that cut across, one of the corners of the lot, and by doing so, it put an easement of about 25 feet down each side of the property in a triangle, which gave the house behind them access to be able to pull in a large size trailer into their driveway. Now, it was done long before this person bought the house, but they didn't know the easement was recorded against the property, and it is an easement. So therefore, when they went to go put up a new fence, the neighbor complained about it. And there wasn't really anything that the current new owners could do because this easement had been in place for a long time and it's still being actively used. So, you know, I would say is please look at those easements, okay? But 16 starts where the easements are gonna be. 17 on this one is an easement was created for adjoining property owners for access. 18 is covenant conditions and restrictions, better known as CC&Rs. Most of Temecula Valley, Murrieta Valley have CC&Rs. And there are rules and regulations within those CC&Rs, just like almost like a homeowners association, right? So certain CC&Rs will say different things that you can or can't do pertaining to the property. And they also then let you know what's included in them. So sometimes, you know, trash pickup, things like that are included in those. 19 is an easement was created for public utilities, right? So this is just public utilities. This is usually a 5 to 10 foot easement that gives the rights to the utility company to come in and either dig up that portion to run new utility lines or have access to work on a utility pole, etc. Okay, and it's usually outlined pretty well in the recorded document. I saw we did have one question that popped up. Let's see, before we go first, and any.
Oh, I think that might have been me. I was just saying, if any questions, use chat or in reactions, raise your hand.
Okay, perfect.
Just letting them know.
Perfect. So we'll move down to 20 here. 20 is where the deed of trust start. The deed of trust is a device for a lender that gives them rights to the money that was loaned against the property. So it's a lien for a loan. And that would be listed here. And it also will show you the recorded document. So if you wanted to pull up that deed of trust, you could. And it usually will tell you the dollar amount. Sometimes it doesn't, but it usually does. It'll tell you when it was dated, and it will tell you the beneficiary or the bank that was issuing bank on it. And then in here, there could be multiple deeds of trust. So you'll see in here, there's two. You have one for 100,000, one for 420,000. And they'll be listed in order, okay? 21 is where any mechanics liens and stuff would be issued, would be after the loan. So mechanics liens, sometimes we see stuff like list pendants, things like that, that may be listed in there. But other liens pertaining to the property would be listed then after the deeds of trust. And then after that, you would have any abstract judgments. So if we pulled the name of the individual and we ran and we knew it was them and there was a judgment, an abstract of judgment from the courts, we would list it in here, okay? Sometimes we don't get it up front when we're pulling the data for the prelim, because sometimes the courts take a little longer and we don't want to wait, 7, 8, 10, 12 days to get the prelim out. So not always will you see it there. But if a prelim was pulled, fairly close to when a new one was pulled, it may already show up in the system. So therefore we would put it there. If not, we would do it after we run the SI and we run it through the court system, and we would send it through escrow, okay? 23 is statement of identity. And we're gonna go through the document of that, but there could be many liens against an individual, and we won't get into what those are, but if they did already show up, they would be listed there. After we run the SI, anything that comes back, we go and update the prelim, and that's where it would be put, okay? 24 is any special requirements. Special requirements to the, that would be needed to facilitate the closing of the transaction. Okay, so that could be things like holding the property in a trust, or when the close of this property happens, it's going to go in a trust, or the current property is being held in a trust and we may need the completed certification of trust. We would list that there, letting you know what those are that we will need, okay? Any questions so far?
You could also see if it was a probate, you would see the probate documentation required, or maybe if the seller, the owner was a corporation, that would show that they need corporation documents. That's where it would be also.
Correct. All right, let's move down the page here to 25. So 25 is where the informational note is put. So if the seller is not a California resident, it may be necessary to withhold portions for the sale proceeds. Things like that would be listed there. It's code mumbo jumbo for the most part, but it's taxual purpose stuff. 26 is payoff information. So this just says that we need a current beneficiary demand prior to closing. 27 is the wiring instructions. Now, we do send wire instructions secure through email as a separate document with account numbers and things like that. And I will say, please make sure whoever sends you wire instructions, meaning wherever you're sending the wire, if you're sending it to title, then you should be contacting the title officers or that unit by phone to verify that the email that came to you does, in fact, read the same verbally by phone, right? Same thing with escrow. If escrow sends you wire instructions, you should be calling your escrow officer and reiterating the wiring instructions and the account numbers via phone to make sure that they are matching. We've had too many incidences where emails get hacked and people end up wiring a lot of money to the wrong place that can never be traced again. But again, that whole section there for 27 is wiring instructions, okay? So then we get down into 28 is the lender's supplemental report. And a lot of times this information isn't always in the prelim because we don't have it. Some lenders are real good and send it in advance. So then we put it into the prelim. Eventually it makes it into the prelim because the lender will request a closing letter, which gives us all the information that we need, and then we update this, okay? But this would be basically the lender information. Let's move down. The next section, 29, is going to be your plot map. And when we put out the prelims, we do highlight the lot so it's easy to find. These sometimes are not always the easiest to read. And if for some reason yours isn't, I can send you a high def copy of one if you needed it. And in some cases, when you get this, let's say we're dealing with Temecula wine country and it's a 5-acre parcel in a rural area, property lines and stuff aren't easily determined. You know, you may want a plotted easement, and I can request a plotted easement be done and sent out to you as well, okay? And then we go into Exhibit B. Now, this is a lot of mumbo jumbo, but for the most part, it breaks down the policy, okay? It tells you exceptions from coverage. It tells you what it covers, things like that, but it kind of goes in and gives a breakdown for the client of what's covered in an ALTA policy. One thing I will tell you that is not covered in an ALTA policy, well, is and is not covered, is encroachment. Okay, the only way encroachment's ever going to be covered in a policy is if a survey was done prior. Okay, so again, 2 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres. If a survey is not done prior to closing, then the insurance policy does not cover encroachment. Okay, and that is listed in here. It's in fine print, but most people are not going to read this. And I've had that come up way too many times. So I always like to tell my agents so that you can then coach your clients is, you know, it's money well spent in some cases, right? All right, so again, this is another portion of what is covered and what isn't covered in an ALTA policy and why. And we're not going to go through this stuff, but If you want some good bathroom reading, you can always go through and read this portion of the prelim. Okay. And then we get to the privacy policy. And that's just how we safeguard our customer information and that we don't share information or sell information, things like that in our privacy policies. And then you go into, there's always a request not to share non-public personal information. They can fill this out. Most do. And then the statement of information. So a lot of people call it an SI. It's a statement of information. I'm going to allow Annie to get on and explain what a statement of information is, and then what is really needed on here, and meaning the mandatory things that are needed, and then, you know, kind of how long it takes, things like that. So take it away, Annie.
Okay, so statement of information, as you guys know, we all call it SI. This document is needed to remove the liens that may show against the buyers or the sellers. So we need them both to fill it out. I have lots of people call and say, well, does the buyer have to fill it out? We need the buyer to fill it out. There are some title companies, actually Tommy's company does not require a buyer's SI, but many of the other companies do. So we collect one from buyers and sellers just to make sure that we don't need it for some reason. So just so you guys know, we collect it from every buyer and every seller. Some title companies do not require the buyers. So start off with the basics. You're going to need the name. The whole thing that we need is we need the full name. So if they have a name that's John Joseph Smith Jones or John Jackie Rodriguez Gomez, we need all of the names put in there, whatever their full name is. That's very important that it's completed. Okay, they don't just put in initials or leave one of the names out. Even if they're not taking title that way, they still need to put the information in. The basic stuff that everybody does, we don't usually have any problems with their phone numbers or their social security, driver's license numbers. They will complete all of this. We need all of the information. When Tommy was telling you that they're checking for liens, the type of liens they're checking for are some of them like child support liens. Those liens don't even have, in some cases, don't have the social security number. Maybe they'll have the last 4 numbers only because they keep it private. So we will actually need the date of birth. We'll need the full driver's license, and we may even need some addresses or occupations to actually match them up with the clients, make sure that if it's theirs or not. That is why we need all their information. We need, if they're married, we need their current spouse name, even if she or he is not going on title. And if they've been married before, we'll need that information. Okay. The other things that we'll need that you will see on many of them is sometimes you will see us ask for children's names and their birth dates. Those are needed for child support liens. If we have a child support lien against a name, we want to make sure that it's their child that we're actually referring to. There's so many people's names that are the same. Also, when they run these reports, they come up. So let's say that the name is John Smith. So they're going to get every Smith. But not only will it pick up Smith, S-M-I-T-H, it's going to pick up S-M-Y-T-H, S-M-Y-T-H-E. So in order for them to get rid of those, the more information they put in for the search, the smaller the report's going to be. I hope that makes sense to everybody. If you have any questions, please let me know. But that's why they're asking for so much of this information. People will ask me, well, I only lived in that property, a month. Okay, do you need to put that in your residences? No. If you only lived there for a month, I don't need that. Or I lived with my mom for 6 months and then I moved into my own place. Well, I don't need the address where you lived with your mom because there's not going to be anything of record for that particular address. So what we need addresses where they lived in apartments and it was in their name, and they bought homes and it was in their name, that type of stuff. That's what we're looking for. Unless they say lived with their parents for 2 years, a year to 2 years. If it's over a year, then yes, put the address in there. Occupations. For the occupations, we want to see what type the occupation is. Okay, so I have been in construction for the last 10 years. Great. Can you tell me what companies you worked for, so that they can match up the occupation with the companies they worked for? Okay, so that's the people's names, addresses, occupations. Spouses. Spouses gets a little more difficult. I have had some people that will say, but I haven't been with this spouse for 30 years. Okay, if it's been 30 years, I probably don't need it. I just need the spouses that have been around for the last 10 years or so. Okay, so just your spouses over about the last 10 years. All right, that's that. And then let's see, Tommy, you want to go down more? I think that's about it. Then the rest of it should be them signing. Well, I talked about the prior marriages, information about the property. That's just basic information. That particular one is probably not on any escrow statement of information, just so you know. That's not necessarily required and on the form. If you see it, then your client fills it out, that's great. But it may not be on the escrow one. We don't actually have that on any of ours. They must sign it. They're signing under penalty of perjury. So now a lot of people will say, well, can it be docu-signed? Even though you're signing under penalty of perjury, yes, you can still have it docu-signed. The title company will accept it if it's docu-signed. Okay, so that was a good thing. I haven't had any title company tell me it can't be returned docu-signed.
Okay, so one of the questions came up, Annie. What is done with this information?
Okay, so this information is given to the title company. And oh, by the way, I should tell you, I have a few clients that may call, like say the seller calls and says, well, I don't want 15 people seeing this. That is no problem. We can actually send this out in a DocuSign format, and then it will go to the title company. The copy will then be returned to the title company. We have the ability to it go straight from the client to the title company, and they will actually get the copy. So that will help people. That makes them feel a little more comfortable, because it's all for the title company. This information goes to the title company so they can clear up and make sure there are no liens against the sellers and or buyers. And that's why we need as much information, because as I said before, when they run these reports, they put in a name. If they put John Smith, birthdate's January of 1986, can you imagine how many names are going to show up on that report? First of all, I don't think they could even print the report off.
Right, a lot.
So they have to put as much information in there to get the reports to come out as small as they can.
The other question was asked, do you need prior spouse if divorce was more than 10 years?
No, that's what I was saying. If the divorce has been over 10 years, they won't need the information, okay? If they put it in there, that's okay, but they don't have to. Unless this particular spouse was on the property. So if they've owned the property for more than 10 years and the spouse was on with them at one time, they were on title, then yes, you do need to put that information in the SI. Okay. Any more questions about this SI? Now's your chance.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask the agents that are on here. Let me ask you, how difficult would it be to get the SI at the same time that you're getting the listing? Do you think the sellers would be uncomfortable completing a form like this? Because if we could get this in the very beginning, or even at the time they're just signing the listing agreement would be great. We could clean that prelim up right from the beginning. I was wanting to get some of your feedback on that.
There was a couple of comments that were put into the chat that said, interesting, I thought the SI was more of identity theft type of thing. And it couldn't be further from that. The SI is a statement of information that allows us the information needed to run the background check on the individuals to clear them of any liens that may have popped up under their name, right? So again, John Smith, we're going to get hundreds of liens that pop back up, right? Because it's a very common name. Only running an SI against a social security number would then narrow that down to only your client, John Smith, which then would allow us to clear that, that lien from being attached to that name. It's 100% to basically run the background to ensure that there are no liens or judgments against the individual, okay?
So I'm seeing some responses that say, yeah, that I think I can do that. That would be good. Is there anybody that thinks the seller might be uncomfortable filling this out when you're taking the listing? Because I don't want you to scare the sellers in any way. I'm just trying to get some feedback if there's a way we can get this ahead of time. Now, remember, we can send this out DocuSign now. So if you're working with us, and I know many of you on this, that we do work together, I can send this out DocuSign. So you can take the listing now and you can say to me, okay, here's a copy of the listing, get our pre-escrow opened, and I can send this form DocuSign to them right then and there. They won't, you won't even have to mess with it. Oh, that's true. Lisa just said to remind everybody that sometimes the recorded liens that are against the clients don't reference a social security number. So we need that other information because that's the only way to find out if it's our client or not.
That's correct. Okay, so we've gone through the SI. I'm going to go ahead and stop share right now. And
maybe unmute everybody.
Yeah, I would like to open it up. I'm going to leave everybody muted, but in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, of your picture, it says unmute. If you have a question, you can unmute, and let's take some questions, or maybe we can make this easier. Annie, let's just go through one by one. I know Rose doesn't have access to audio, but Rose, if you have anything, please put it into the chat, and you can get the chat by clicking more at the bottom, or just clicking on the chat icon at the bottom of your screen. Lenina, do you have any questions in regards to the prelim or the SI?
I don't think so, but like on my title reports that I have, it has like an order number. Is it possible you could send me one without like an order number, just a blank one, so I can, when I do get a listing agreement, possibly have them get that taken care of at the same time?
The statement of information.
Oh, the statement of information?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
Annie can send one out to you.
Okay.
As far as the deck that I went through on the prelim deck, I put the link in the chats. It's the second chat in the chat box. So you guys can click on that and have access to explaining each step of the prelim. So feel free to get that. But yeah, we can get an SI, a blank one, sent out to you so you can make copies of it and have that in your deck.
Okay.
All right. Kathy, did you have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. Did you, when you said that you wouldn't cover an encroachment unless there'd been a survey, if the encroachment is already a recorded encroachment, or are you referring to just an encroachment that may come up after, that wasn't known, that may come up after the close?
Yeah, after.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So a perfect example is this. Had a property in wine country, and they were 5-acre lots. One of the neighbors had put up a block wall surrounding his property on two sides, one splitting with the neighbor. Two of the neighbors' houses were fairly close together. And the house next to him sold, new neighbors came in, they wanted to put in a pool. And when the pool contractor came out, they wanted to put a nice vanishing edge pool and stuff and blah, blah, blah. He said, hey, it would be much better if I can angle the pool in a different way. Would you mind if we, took out a small portion of the wall and rebuilt the wall in a different angle? And she said, well, that's not my wall. And he said, based on the measurements of the property, that's your wall. And come to find out, that wall encroached the other property 1,800 square feet, right? Now, that encroachment was not covered because there was no survey done prior to it. And luckily it didn't get down to that. The neighbor that put the wall in was a guy that had that as a vacation home that lived out of the country. He was very nice about it and said, I put it up, I will take it down. But, you know, it doesn't always end that way.
Mm. Mm.
But that's a great question.
Yeah, thank you. Can I ask another one, or you just want one?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh,
ask away.
So the taxes, you know, if one party is a resident and one isn't, they're both on title, is that a problem? If one spouse is a resident, you know, has a green card, a resident and legal resident, but the other
Are you talking about the 593 withholding taxes?
Yeah.
That's a good question. So if the parties are filing together, so they're husband and wife, but they're filing together, as long as that they show that they were a resident of one of them at least was a resident of the property, then they're filing together. So that's okay. They can actually do the 593 showing, yes, we are a resident together.
Oh,
Now, if they're separate and one lives there, I'm going to tell you an example right now. So I've got one right now where they're getting a divorce. The wife is living in the property and the husband is not, and he hasn't been there for, I think he said about 12 months. So they're not filing together. So they each have to do their own 593 form. And he has not been living in the property. So he is actually checked with his CPA, and his CPA said, you're going to have to pay the 3 1/3% on 50% of that sales price. Now, I just sent him an email yesterday though, and I said, are you sure you have to pay? Can you check and see if you can complete page 2, and maybe you will have a loss, or at least your gain will be such where you can pay the 12% against the gain, and it'd be less than the 3 1/3. And he was like, oh, that's right. So there are options. So if you've got a situation like that, we need to talk more about it, because it turns out he's going to pay a lot less tax on just the gain, his portion of the gain.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah. Thanks.
Great questions. Anything else, Kathy?
I think that was it. So if there's a lease, I'm sorry, everyone. I feel like I'm taking all their time. If there's a judgment or lease pendants and that, you won't close until that's settled, right? Oh,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
That's a cloud on title. It has to be handled before title can be transferred.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks.
Okay. Nan and Steve, did you guys have anything? No, you're good? Okay. Mr. Self, Daryl, did you have anything?
No, I think we're good. I just had the, things we've been dealing with the map app, the old map. So we can
That's
go
a
off
whole different
that.
story.
Yeah. Thank you.
Antoine, did you have any questions, sir? Oh, hold on, we gotta unmute you. There you go.
Okay. My only question was, were you able to record the Zoom and send the Zoom recording out afterwards?
I will, yes. I did record it, and I will send out the link for access after you.
Okay, that'll work.
Yep. Sherry and Ron, did you guys have anything? You'll have to.
I think we got all our questions answered. Very, very good information. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Everything was.
Tatiana, did you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Okay, so Alicia didn't have any questions.
Andrea didn't have any questions either. No questions.
Tracy wants a recording. Tracy, do you have any questions outside of that?
No, she said no questions.
Okay.
No, thank you.
And the other Tracy?
Bye, guys. What's that?
Tracy DeLong.
Hi, Tracy.
Hey guys, I have you muted because I have my daughters in here with me.
No big deal.
No, I don't have any questions. That was a lot of great information. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Bartels, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Tommy. Great presentation.
Okay. And Brenda had said she didn't have any. George, you came on late. I put a link in the chat. So if you click on chat, you'll be able to download the prelim deck that walks you through a prelim.
I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, thank you.
But I did put it in there so you can download that. And if you had any questions, by all means, feel free to ask.
I absolutely will.
Just
Okay.
give me a call, George. Hi.
Definitely.
Esther, did you have any questions? Let me see if I can unmute her. Oh,
She said she's good for now.
okay.
Thanks, Esther.
So I'd like to really thank everybody for coming on. Hopefully you got a little bit of value out of it. Most people that go through the deck do learn something. You know, like I said, some of the stuff is very common, but a lot of the stuff is not. And I can't emphasize the easements. One thing you didn't see in the prelim deck that is in the decks is the recorded document numbers, right? So each of the easements and the deed of trusts and all the recorded documents have a recorded document number there next to it. Now those are all hyperlinked. So when you open my prelims, you can click on that document number, it'll open up the hyperlink to that recorded document, which then will give you all the information that you need to understand what that easement may be, right? Because sometimes it doesn't always say what it is for. So I would say is try and go through that. I'm trying to get into a habit of opening up the prelims when they come out and recording my screen and going through the prelim to walk you through it and then sending that video to you. Because then that will at least, I may see something that you don't see on it, right? Or vice versa. But that'll allow me, instead of trying to tie you up for 5-10 minutes on the phone or online like this to go through it, I can just record my screen, go through it step by step, tell you what I see, send it to you, and then if you have any questions, you just respond to it. And it seems to be a little bit more time valuable for you guys by me doing it that way. So that's what I'm going to try and do moving forward. More so, I've been doing it a little bit, but I'm going to try and get pretty lenient on myself to do that every time a prelim comes out. Okay. What I would like to do is, if you guys have any suggestions of what you would like Annie or I to cover on our next week's Zoom, which we're going to do on Wednesday at 12:30, throw some ideas at us. And you can put them in the chat. Throw some ideas of what you would like to see or what you may want some clarification on, etc. And that's how we'll build these Zoom calls around those. Some weeks we may cover multiple topics, like today we covered the SI and the prelim because those go hand in hand. But we would like to gather maybe 2 or 3 things because some things can be explained in a few minutes, right? And I don't want you to take time out of your day to get on a Zoom call and not get value out of it. That just kind of defeats the purpose. So if you do have any suggestions, by all means, you could text Annie, text myself. I'll put my cell phone for those of you that may not have it in the chat. Oops. So I put my cell phone in there in the chat, or you can just send an email as well, and I'll put that in the chat as well. But yeah, give us some suggestions. So we'd like you guys to get some value. And, you know, if we're all at home right now and not going out nearly as often as we were in the past, it'd be great to be able to at least give some value that is beneficial to you guys. So I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to get on the call. I think we had 23 people on the call today, which was a great turnout. The other thing that I'll leave is Annie and I are part of another group called Weekly Valley Pitch. Some of you may have heard of it, some of you may not. We were doing them live at locations in town. Now we're doing them virtual on Zoom. So what Weekly Valley Pitch is it's a forum that allows you to promote your listings, your coming soons, your buyer wants and needs, any community event stuff that you're involved with. And what we do is we put it into a presentation, into a PowerPoint presentation. We all get on Zoom like we did today, and we run that presentation through Zoom. And it allows you to come on and pitch your property or pitch your buyer's wants and needs when it's your turn. And we also broadcast it live on Facebook for exposure. So our next Zoom for that is tomorrow at 4 p.m. And if you guys have any properties or coming soon properties or anything like that that you would like to pitch on our Zoom tomorrow at 4 p.m., you can do one of two things. You could put it in the chat here, either MLS ID number or the address. I'll make sure it gets into the presentation, and I'll make sure that you get the link for the Zoom tomorrow. Or you can send it to weeklyvalleypitch@gmail.com. That's the email, weeklyvalleypitch@gmail.com. And you can send what it is there, and we will then gather the information ourselves, put it into the presentation, and help you promote those properties for you, okay? And we're gonna do that Weekly Valley Pitch every week on Thursday at 4 p.m. moving forward. So by all means, help us help you promote what you have out there going on, help you promote your buyer's needs, help you promote the listings that you may have out there, etc. With that, Annie, do you have anything to add?
No, just thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to these calls or these meetings. It's nice to be face to face with people and interact. And I think if you get a little bit of value out of it, it was well worth the time. So thank you guys. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us direct.
And Kathy, I'm ready for us to get together again. Let's start doing another drink night.
Hey, I'm all down. I'm down for a Zoom happy hour anytime.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I like that idea because then I can do it from San Diego.
That's right. Yeah.
Zoom happy hour. I've had a few of them. They work out great.
Thank you.
We make the picture of margaritas here, and they make them there, and then we all start drinking margaritas.
There you go.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Send us the next invite on that one.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you guys.
Well, thank you for your time. I will
Thank
leave the
you.
Zoom on for a little bit. If you guys have anything that you want to talk about, I'm going to hang around. Annie will hang around for a few minutes, and anything else you can put into the chat. But thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you see many supplemental liens, Anne? Supplemental tax liens?
We probably see, yeah, I would say out of maybe 10 prelims, I probably get it on at least 2 or 3 of them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They're usually not a lot, I mean,
Yeah,
like
they're usually fairly small.
they're usually running the hundreds,
Yeah.
It's very, I think well, then again, I did a $2 million piece property, and that one was a couple thousand, but that's because it was a $2 million piece of property. So.
That people maybe overlooked paying or something, or didn't, just didn't.
I think that people think that because, okay, so when you buy the property, you get an impound account, right?
Right.
And the supplement doesn't come out till usually anywhere from 6 months up to a year.
Mm-hmm.
before that supplement comes out. And I think a lot of people think when they get the bill that it's going to be handled through their impound.
Right.
The problem is the lender doesn't get a copy of it, so they don't know anything about it. Unless they send it to the lender, they can't pay it. Now,
Right.
if the buyer sends that bill to the lender, if they email it to them or send it to them, there is enough money in the impound account to get it paid, so they should be able to get it paid from the lender.
Mm.
They just don't get it.
Yeah, so it's kind of overlooked. Okay.
Exactly. That's why it gets missed. And then unfortunately, they have a penalty if they don't pay it within 6 months like they're supposed to.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thanks. That was
Yep.
great. Thank you so much. Thank you. I learned a lot.
Yay.
Really.
Well, if you have any ideas, let us know. Something
Oh, I
else you want us
will.
to talk about.
I will. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Sure.
Have a great day. Good to
You
see you. Thanks.
You
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
both of you. Thank you. It was great.